It's just so fascinating. I mean, it's just so much clearer. It's so much sort of more aligned with the music. It's almost as though it's actually written for it, coincidentally. So we're here in Enschede in the Netherlands. We flew out last night to explore this very, very special piano, the Graf piano, that's held in a piano workshop by Edwin Beunk here in the Netherlands. We're going to try out this world that Beethoven had in his mind when he was composing his earlier piano works. That's why this is so incredibly interesting, because I myself am used to playing on modern Steinways, so this is going to be incredible. I can't wait. Hello, I'm here for the piano and for the Orchestra of the Age of Enlightenment.
And it's in the workshop.
So do we go around?
Yes, it is in.
Oh, amazing.
Very
Thank
careful for the everything.
Thank you very much. Oh wow, this is absolutely incredible. Wow. Thank you very much. Thank you. Oh, amazing. Yeah, wow. There are all these options in sound that you don't actually think about when you have a modern grand piano, as in, like, you take them for granted, you can do things. Here you have to really think about what is the kind of character you want, what's the kind of sound you want to create, and I think, and also with phrasing, you have to be so much more aware of it. My hands are sort of used to the modern grand, and this is a lot more compact in terms of the keys. They're also narrower, so you need a lot more sort of curved fingers, touch, that kind of. You need that a lot more, sort of the clarity, and I think that requires a lot more finger action, but more from the joints that are actually the wrist, what you would need for a modern grand.
You'll notice that the depth that the key has to fall to play the note is tiny compared with a modern instrument. And the modern instrument just feels so heavy to play, which is why you have to use the whole arm mechanism to get that big sound on the modern piano, which you wouldn't do on an early instrument because you would simply break it. Graf as a piano maker had quite a long career through well into the 19th century, and he was quite an innovator too. One of his innovations was to just alter the character a bit of the Viennese piano. So in his hands, the piano became a slightly more mellow instrument, slightly heavier construction, more resonance from the instruments. And of course, Graf gave Beethoven, or loaned him, a piano in 1825, long after most of the piano music was written actually. But in 1825 he loaned Beethoven an instrument that wasn't unique, but it was unusual in that it had 4 strings per note. Of course, you have to remember that by this time Beethoven was really profoundly deaf, and he did anything he could in order to be able to hear the instrument.
What's so striking is the resonance. It's actually really quite a big sound. I was quite surprised how.
And the beautiful thing about this copy, it doesn't sound like a copy. It sounds like an original, but it has the strength of a copy. So
yeah.
So that's good for all these big halls.
And what was striking for me is the difference in articulation that Beethoven writes.
Yeah.
You could do them, and it just makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Than on a.
But you know, the big difference with the pianoforte and the modern grand is with the modern grand you can do it with your touche, but the pianoforte has registers. You can use the pedals, and you use it much more than with a modern piano.
I don't know what to do with the pedals. I mean, there are 4 of them. Let's just figure this out. So we've got the right pedal, which is of course the normal pedal in which there's more resonance. Which is very similar to a modern grand. This pedal here moves the keyboard exactly like it does on a modern grand. This is a proper unicorder. Look how it works here. You can see the keyboard moving side to side.
Many modern piano players don't use the una corda. The people who play on the pianoforte, they use it a lot, and also the modulator.
Yes.
When field comes between the hammers and the strings.
If I use this second pedal here, as you can see, there is this blanket of sound that's created. So I probably would use it like that, in which the right pedal would be used as well at the same time. This one, I still don't know what it does. This particular one has 4 pedals.
Yeah.
I was able to work with the 2 outer and the left one.
Yeah.
The middle one, I couldn't quite figure out what it did.
Well, it's not connected.
Oh, that's why I was. That makes sense.
It's a pedal for the bassoon. The bassoon sound that only goes from here to there. So you have a sound supposed to sound like a bassoon, but actually I hate this sound. And we almost every time we leave it out, because when you accidentally push the pedal, then you have this terrible bassoon sound. So that's
Okay, that's good to know.
In the early days of the piano, the hammer coverings are made of leather, and so that's a more incisive sort of sound. As you get into the 1830s or even late 1820s, you get felt being used as opposed to leather. And whereas the pianos of the late 18th century would have hammers that are probably, roughly the same sort of size as the tip of my finger there, by the time you get to the end of the story in the late 19th century, you've got felt hammers that are about that sort of wide in the base. So big differences there. And in order to hold all of this together, especially the higher tension on the strings and the wider compass that is also increasing the load on the frame of the instrument, you eventually get complete metal frames. These days, all grand pianos are made with composite metal frames, and that just takes the tension of the strings. With all this development of the piano in the period that we've been talking about, you might ask the question, who's driving those developments? Is it the composers? Is it the piano makers, or some other factors? I think there are a number of factors involved. There is a greater emphasis on public concerts, and in public concerts, if you want to reach the back of the hall, you've got to have instruments that will do that. So that provided impetus for more power on the instrument. But obviously the pianists themselves, and most composers of the period who wrote for the piano were pianists themselves. They obviously wanted to have an instrument that they were comfortable with. And it's a feature of Beethoven's writing that he is always dissatisfied with the piano. I'm not quite sure what he wanted, but he always expresses himself as being dissatisfied. I think probably, in a nutshell, you could say he wanted more power from the instrument, but he didn't want it to be heavier to play.
It's fantastically light, but still, in terms of balance, you can do whatever you want, really. It's not quite that. Actually, the fact is that we are playing on a modern grand the entire repertoire. So obviously you have to do certain things with the pedal, with the sound, with the quality of the touch to mimic the kind of clarity that you get straight away with this instrument. But it does then obviously require something else, a clarity of thought, really. Besides all of that, it's fascinating.